They've been called the dog days of August, and they were once two-a-days, but the grind is on, and this is the point in the season in which most football players are sick of hitting guys with the same color jerseys on, and they're ready to roll. But last-minute details and technique and fundamentals still to be worked on, and position battles across the board to a certain extent, including with the Canes, of course. We talk Miami football with you each and every Wednesday, typically at 7 Eastern time. Blame it on me. Here we are at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we appreciate you jumping on board. And, of course, Cam Underwood here to do the heavy lifting. The State of the U is the spot on a daily basis for your Miami football fix. Hey, Cam.
Yo, what's going on, Mark? Glad to be here with you. And, just going to get into it here. In the middle camp, one scrimmage down and everything. So, moving towards getting, into game prep here in probably a week or 10 days, turning the focus from, general preparation to focused game install, scheme installs and things like that. So, yeah, man.
Prime time, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the morning. It doesn't matter. Falcon or TRX. He's going to be the first one to show up. Hey. I screwed up, didn't I? Somebody assumed. And that makes something out of just me.
Hey.
Leroy, the Black Ninja Turtle, thank you for the super sticker. We appreciate you as well.
Threw the L up for you there, Leroy. Yeah, I saw it. I was just like, hold on a minute. Like, I know that's how that usually goes.
I just saw the red, and that's usually Falcon or TRX's deal right out of the gate.
No, I get it, man. But we'll take that at another time. Appreciate it.
And that is a cue for everyone that you can leave your comments and questions there in the chat, and we will pick them off one by one. And this being one of the best times of year to leave comments and questions, especially as we dive into the season. We'll always have a game to review and a game to look forward to and plenty of to talk about going forward. So your comments and questions fill out the show at this point. You did mention a scrimmage, and most people are hitting those scrimmages. Was this last Saturday?
It was Sunday, actually. So we had Monday off of practice. Mario Cristobal talked with Don Bailey Jr., former player who's he's the color commentator on the lead broadcast, radio broadcast down here. And Cristobal said that the offense did some good things. There were some big plays that were hit and others that were missed, and quickly, because the initial question was about the offense. So, hey, how'd they do and everything? And Cristobal was quick to give praise to the defense for the reason why some of those shot plays didn't hit, and why even with some successes, there were some struggles from the offense. But you got scholarship players on the other side of the ball, and they made it where it was a tough road to hoe at some times. So I think that it's you're gonna you don't want one side of the ball to dominate, because you're going to play other teams. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have that ebb and flow back and forth to some level, because, when your one defense is against the opposing one offense, you want them to create problems there as well. Talked about Carson, playing really well. I saw some people are debating or talking about the QB depth chart is potentially going to change, not at the top, but basically hinting that Luke Nickel had a very strong scrimmage and is performing very, very well. So him versus Emory Williams for that 2 kind of a thing, which I pretty much thought, is settled science, but, could change, especially, moving forward, but things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of youngsters who are out there. I saw some stuff about Hayden Lowe, really looking like he, 5-star from Oaks Christian in California, looking like he's pushing for playing time. And the defense just really starting to really settle in to what Corey Heatherman wants them to do. So, it's a single step, but it's a good step. There's still battles to be waged and won. there's already been smoke about Malachi Toney, or that temperature keeps rising, that volume keeps turning up. For him at slot receiver, Ray Joseph is still the high school All-American and incredibly talented player that he was, when we flipped him from Clemson after, finally offering him because, Manny Diaz said that he wasn't big enough to play at Miami, but okay. But when you have that kind of athleticism and speed, whatever. But yeah, he's in there. You got veteran receivers stepping up and things like that. So, yeah. Another thing that I found interesting that I did quote tweet, there was a picture of the offensive line, and had been hearing this, but I didn't really want to say anything about it because, like, I wanted to let it get a little further. But there's a picture of Markel Bell at left tackle in front of Carson Beck at quarterback. So you're 6'9" starting left tackle and your big money, big time transfer quarterback. And in front of the quarterback and next to the left tackle playing left guard, wearing number 63, Samson Okunlola, the former 5-star recruit from 3 years ago in that same class as Francis Mawinoa. So, if that starts to really connect all of the dots, had been hearing that he's really leaning into his development, hearing Mirabal talk about developing players, got that one right there. That's the picture. So Markel Bell, number 70, Carson Beck, number 11, and Samson Okunlola at left guard, number 63 right there, clearly with the ones. So, and I looked at it before I even quoted it because I was like, let me make sure that's the starting quarterback and the starting left tackle, and like, this is the ones. So Mirabal has talked about developing guys. He's talked about the fact that there are 8 or 9 guys who he feels comfortable can play and could start here, right? And could pretty much start anywhere in America. And so now if you're seeing Okunlola running with the ones, even if it's at guard, not tackle, that speaks volumes to that. And then if you're talking about, okay, well, look at the development of Francis Mawinoa, look at the development of Vonez Cooper, look at the development of Matthew McCoy, look at the development of all of these guys along the offensive line, add another data point to that conversation. So yeah, we're going in a right direction. I definitely want to hear and see more from the defense, but yeah.
You bring up an interesting tension between offense and defense on a healthy team. Healthy meaning emotionally, mentally healthy, and balanced between the offense and the defense, and the tension that you need to see in practice. Because I can just imagine the mental beatdown for one side of the football week after week after week. So you go through August practice for a month, and either the defense is getting gashed, getting torched, the secondary, and it's just pitch and catch like nobody's business, or it's just a struggle and nobody can gain a yard, and the offensive line can't block the defensive front, and it's just pure domination and toil, and the quarterbacks you can't even get a read on them because they can't even get the ball off, and it's just all mucked up. And then these guys, they stand in the they're walking to the locker room after those 2 or 3 hours every day side by side and looking at each other, kind of like offense looking like, are you guys going to be there for us this year? Are you
Hey, look, we had that last year. We've definitely had it in the past. I mean, when Al Golden was coach, go look at those offensive numbers. We were hooping. Like, there was yards, there were points, like guys getting drafted, all of that stuff. And defense was a wet paper towel, maybe. Well, not even. It was like a wet piece of tissue paper. So we've seen that here. And yeah, you don't want to have that. You definitely do want to have it go back and forth. Because it showed like the success and the struggles are positives. So if either side is successful, like, because it's inverted, you know what I mean? It's, when one side is successful, the other side struggles. So then it shows the performing skill of the one side and also the areas for growth for the other side. But like, they're, it just kind of feeds off of each other. But, this is what happens in practice when you're, playing against each other, which is why NFL teams have joint practices where we get to still, in a sandbox, work on our stuff, but against someone else, so we can really kind of get that measuring stick, not just against ourselves internally.
It's a similar dynamic, I would think, as you go from the elite teams in college football and then drift down through, maybe once you get into, I don't know, the 40s and 50s, something in that range, where there may be position groups on those teams where one dude is so much better than everybody else. They got one wide receiver and then the other guys. So that guy doesn't get pushed because he knows he's the best in the group. He's going to play. He's going to get the targets. So he doesn't improve, as opposed to elite groupings of players on elite teams where you got 4 and 5 wide receivers or whatever the position unit, where they're all pushing each other because, I'm as talented as anybody here, but if I don't bust my tail, I'm not going to keep my job.
Well, and the other thing about that is having someone on the opposite side of the ball. Malcolm Lewis and Tracy Howard at Miramar High School, and then at the University of Miami. Like, I watched them both develop into, like, every day after choir rehearsal got done, and I would go out there, with band practice and football, which went later because I only kept my kids till about 5, but they would be there till later, and I would see them working against each other. There have been plenty of people talking about Francis Mauigoa and Ruben Bain doing that currently this year at the University of Miami. I'm 2 potential early mock drafted, first round picks working against each other. So there is the the position room push of, like, I need a guy at my position to push me forward, but then also, like, iron sharpening iron. Let me go against the best guy on the other side who's here. So even if there isn't anybody else in my room that's as good as me, there's competition on the other side of the ball that I will be facing at what, opposite myself, whether that's, the aforementioned wide receiver cornerback thing, whether it's offensive lineman, defensive lineman, yada, yada, yada. So you have to have kind of all of those things put together. Interesting thought here from Martin Dubé, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Talking about the advanced age of players on the roster. So Carson Beck, I don't know if they're all as old as saying here. But basically saying, your starting quarterback, a guy who's probably going to play at middle linebacker, a guy who's playing at wide receiver, 2 defensive linemen, a left tackle, and 2 offensive linemen, all of them 3 years old or older. And so then NIL means we are a grown-up team, 2 NFL corners, giant offensive line. He's predicting 15-0, which, okay.
They're going to still be playing games at that
right.
point.
It would need to be 16-0 with the but I'm good to get to 15-0 and then let the dice fall where they may. I'm good. But it is interesting because there does need to be a balance of youth and age, potential and demonstrated performance. So like you're talking about, with a quarterback 24-3 in the SEC, a middle linebacker who's in his 7th year off of 2 ACL tears, a wide receiver who's been at 2 different schools already and has 1,000-yard season, more than 1,000 yards. David Belay, the defensive tackle. Markel Bell, the aforementioned left tackle, who went to JUCO. I think Aki Mesdor is the one who's talking about strong side defensive end at 24 years old in his 6th year. James Brockermeyer in his 5th or 6th year, 23 years old. So there is plenty of, there are enough grown-ups. Right, Tony Johnson's a guy in his 5th year who's probably in his early 20s as well. There are veteran guys, but you have to mix that, and then you also have to have those guys lead, not only by example but like by intent as well. But then you mix that at those advanced, those older players, right, with an Armando Blunt who's 18, barely turning 19. With a Justin Scott, who's younger, with a Malachi Tony, who reclassified up a whole year. You know what I mean? Like, there are other dudes who are in positions to potentially play roles on this team who do not have this advanced chronology. So it's a wonderful tapestry of not just having a bunch of octogenarians relatively, right? And then not having just a bunch of, young children, mixing it together. So yeah, it is interesting that there is a lot, these guys with advanced age, relative. College. These are about as old as college players are going to get. I know that Cam McCormick was like in his late 20s because he was in college for 9 years. I get it, but yeah. So, but this is the added thing that he mentioned in here about NIL. Most players are going to be older who transfer. That's just the way that it usually goes. There are going to be some who transfer early, but like you're not usually going to get. Like Zach Poyser as a freshman All-American is an outlier because he transferred up 2 levels, basically. Marty Brown, the same thing, coming from FCS. You're not usually going to get, the Jerry Rice Award winner for the best freshman in FCS football, and then another freshman All-American from just a lower level team. Those guys in the portal are few and far between. It's going to be more of these dudes and like the Jacoby Thomas from Tennessee's with the age. So yeah, this is the tapestry of building a roster. And even in the past, without the transfer portal being what it is now, you would still see, older guys on teams. But yeah, it is interesting that you mentioned a bunch of these guys that we have brought in either from the transfer portal or, in Markel Bell's case from JUCO, who are a little bit older to, join the mix.
Corey Fleming, appreciate your super chat contribution. What happened to JoJo Trader?
If anything, I missed it. I was looking at other things and doing other. If anything, I missed it. I, appreciate the question. I'll have to look and read and inquire or whatever. But I would usually hear something from a Miami friend or one of the 7 group chats that I'm in if like something major would have happened. Maybe it was because I didn't mention him in the prior chat about the offense. I believe Cristobal called him out by name for making a good play at the scrimmage. But yeah, if it's anything crazy, I hate to say that because I usually try to see and read and consume all of the content out there about everything. But you might have stumped me on that one, Corey Fleming. Sorry.
I'm not finding anything here.
Yeah.
Leroy, the Black Ninja Turtle, thank you for your contribution. Leroy asking, what would it take for our offensive line to win the Best Offensive Line Group Award, which is the Joe Moore Award?
Not much. Consistent performance to the level of their talent across the year. I've been saying, for a long time, I believe that this is a top 2 group in the country and might not be number 2. This is an elite group with diverse players, incredible depth, skill, demonstrated performance, talent, incredible coaching, incredible development, incredible, recruiting, just all of the things that you would want to have in an offensive line. I thought that they were maybe overlooked last year because of Cam Ward, basically, taking all the spotlight, but it strains credulity to have the best offense in America and like no mention of the offensive line. Sorry. And with all these highlights of Cam Ward sitting back there baking a cake and knitting a sweater live in the game, right? Like that didn't happen by happenstance. That happened because the guys up front did their jobs to a super uber elite level. So I thought that they were a little overlooked in terms of their performance and in terms of their performance last year. So, I think it will take, and I think that we're seeing it from now, but the additional part of that is, bro, you got to politic. You have to, you have to campaign. You have to have the propaganda machine out there. I know that we put up the website but the University of Miami in the middle of September or October for Cam Ward's Heisman campaign, right? It might have been October going November, but so they did that and they pushed all the highlights and the numbers every week and everything. They said, hey, this guy should be in consideration for the Heisman Trophy because of boom. I think that you start that yesterday. There's been pictures of, like even putting that picture out of Samson Okunlola, right? And talking about, okay, well, the guys who are up for individual awards. I love that great wall of Mirrorball, moniker, and you put that out there every week, and you start that campaign to say, hey, especially because the majority of the time that people watch offensive line is when something's going wrong. It just is what it is. I get caught up ball watching on offense also. True story, right? So, but they do their job at a 99.9 success rate across these plays across a season, and it's like the way that you breathe and the way that your heart beats, right? There's a part of your brain that handles that. You don't think heartbeat now, heartbeat now, heartbeat now, heartbeat now. So you don't pay attention to that. And the offensive line is something akin to that, where they're always there doing their thing, but not being front and center in front of like people's estimation, really. So taking it and putting them in front of people's eyes, saying, hey, we did this. The blocking did this. The run game did this. Look at how few times Carson Beck got touched. Look at the da-da-da-da-da. And that's because of the offensive line. So you start that from now, in addition to what I hope, turns out being excellent performance. So you put those things together, and then I think that puts the group in potential position for an award such as this. And yeah, just, when you have Francis Mauigoa, Anas Cooper, Markel Bell, the whole five, but those three specifically, if they continue to dominate individually and be, and elevate themselves into conversations for All-American, All-Conference, national awards, NFL draft, that then propels the group forward, because you're like, hey, I named three, and I know that there are five starters, but left tackle, right guard, who's one of the best developmental finds ever, and, a potential top 10 pick at right tackle, using those guys to highlight the performance of the collective.
And I also think another related component there is that there are no statistics for the offensive line, no traditional statistics for offensive linemen. Unlike any other position on the field, you got statistics for everybody else, not the offensive line. Therefore, if you don't plant the seed that this is one of the best offensive lines in the country, you don't have the dynamic of Joe Blow, running back for Wisconsin, who nobody has ever heard of, starts ripping off 150, 170-yard games. Well, within 3 or 4 weeks, he becomes known, and people are like, wow, this guy must be really good. Well, suddenly he becomes a somebody, because you can look at a stat sheet and you can look at highlights. Offensive line, let's face it, nobody's breaking down offensive line tape. And some people will make that connection. Oh, this offense that we underrated is really explosive. Their offensive line must be really. A few people may make that connection, but very few. So you got to, the preseason. I notice that with All-American, All-Conference teams, sometimes guys will have somewhat marginal seasons, but they got a reputation. Or
you see that at the high school level as well. Max Prep's All-American, and it's like, what? 32 catches for 655 yards and 6 scores. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but All-American.
Or vice versa. Somebody can't get their way, and they're really, you talk to the coaches that had to play him, and like, that guy's really good, but had no rep going into the season.
Absolutely.
Before you get to just that, to finish off our offensive line. Just to finish off our offensive line portion of this, I get the Phil Steele. So, folks, for a second time this summer, we just had Phil Steele on live just a few hours ago, so you can check that out on the main channel. His top offensive line units read as such: Penn State 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3, Texas A&M 4, Florida 5, Miami 6.
Disagree.
That's his rundown.
Disagree. I definitely don't think that Florida has a better offensive line than Miami. That is asinine to me. And even if you're taking depth into account, and I have the same book, I was just looking at it earlier when I was writing a game preview for the SMU game, which is up right now on stateview.com, by the way. But yeah, no, I do not agree with that. Like, I don't agree. I know that, he has his own view, and like it's his own thing, and he uses his own Phil Steele recruiting rankings, and I get it, and that's great and industrious, and like I empower him to have that that platform and everything, and to put forth that but like, yeah, commenting on what is put there and everything, no, I do not agree with Miami at 6. Not at all.
Do you want to hear the rest of these position rankings nationally?
Let's do it.
See what you think.
Let's do it.
Quarterbacks. And I got to think this is heavily placed on the starter. But just to give you a feel for who's in front of Miami, Clemson 1, LSU 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, South Carolina 5, Georgia Tech 6, Arizona State 7, Oklahoma 8, Miami 9 at quarterback.
I saw that look for Georgia Tech. That was funny. Haynes King and Aaron Philo. So basically saying one can run and one can throw, because Philo was very, very prolific in high school and everything. And I mean, look, he came in against Miami and dotted us up in the few throws that he had. I think that's a little overrating for Georgia Tech, but, fine. As a room, I think 9th is fine for Miami as individual starters in the world of college football. I think that's low for Carson Beck. So take that as you will.
Yeah, it's the unique position where the starter doesn't get hurt. It doesn't matter. But if he does, then suddenly the depth is everything. The number 2 guy is everything. Running back, I'm not going to read off. I'll just stay top 5 and anybody connected to Miami. Penn State 1, Notre Dame 2, Texas 3, Louisville 4, Oklahoma 5, Georgia Tech at 13, Florida 14, Miami 16 at running back?
No, wrong. Absolutely wrong. I mean, in terms of Miami, like they're no. With Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyles, is Marty Brown on there as is listed in the 16 in the rundown? Because maybe he came after that.
He just has a list.
Oh yeah, because the top groups get blurbs. Yeah, I don't even know if Marty Brown was part of that consideration, but to have those 3 at the top, and then Gerard Pringle, who was a top 10 running back in this class, nope. Sorry. I mean, it should definitely be closer to 10 than 20. Not saying that it's like the offensive line that I think is top 2, but no, that's too low.
Yeah, I agree. Wide receiver, Ohio State 1, Clemson 2, LSU 3, Alabama 4, Texas 5. That's your top 5. Notre Dame, who they play, obviously, game 1 is 14, and Miami's at 23.
I think that's about fair for the wide receiver group, because there are so few guys who have proven it at this level. So next year, I would expect that ranking to be in the top 20, maybe, definitely higher than 23rd, but reasonable because of the collection of talent, which is pretty undeniable, but the preponderance of that talent has not produced at this level, especially just because we had, a bunch of dudes in front of them that played the majority of the snaps for the number 1 offense in America. So, yeah.
Defensive line. Top 10, Oklahoma, Clemson, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Alabama, Texas Tech, Iowa, Texas, and Florida, with Miami at 11.
I think that's reasonable. I think that you can split hairs and potentially reorder some of those teams from like 8 to 12, but Miami basically on the cusp of the top 10 in that 8 to 12 kind of conversation, landing at 11, I think that's reasonable.
Linebackers.
Oof.
Top 5, Texas, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Pitt. And then Miami checks in at 26.
That even seems a little generous, to be perfectly honest. So we'll see how things go.
Top 5 secondaries. Notre Dame, Alabama, Clemson, Penn State, Texas A&M. Miami checks in at 24.
Same thing as linebacker. I think there's a conversation because of the names on defense or in the secondary that it could be a little bit higher, but especially after the no, the injuries and the lack of production, of solid, but just bad performances, from the end of the year and everything. Yeah, I think that's, it's higher than we should have been based upon last year. I think it's reasonable when you consider a wholesale overhaul of, coaching, players, scheme, like everything in the secondary. Well, not everything, because I know people are going to say, well, you said everything. You know what I mean, exaggerating for comedic effect, but 90% of everything being different. You got guys coming back from injury, so you don't know how they're necessarily going to play Damari Brown, Jadis Richard, if Jadis Richard plays this year. I know that OJ Frederick, but yeah, with certain carryovers and a lot of change schematically, coaching wise, and personnel wise, I think that elevating from where reasonably we should have been ranked and adding all that into the conversation puts Miami in that 24 to 30-ish range. I'm fine with that in the secondary rankings.
And I would think special teams is extremely difficult to evaluate, depending on how much weight you put on the place kicker and the punter versus coverage units, return units that change or just a rotating, just a turnstile of guys. Yeah. Iowa's number 1, Georgia's 2, BYU 3, Vandy 4, and Michigan 5, and Miami of Ohio is at number 12. Miami is 67.
We've seen the end of the Borgales kicking dynasty, unfortunately, because, Ms. Vivi only had 2 boys. So we got Jose for a year and then Andres for 4. We bring in Bert Auburn from Texas, who, famously had the yips last year. People are saying that, he's worked out the yips and is kicking like an All-American that he's been previously. We'll see. Punter, I believe, is one of the best in America. We just need to be consistent in coverage. And we were not last year, which is why you saw kick returns from Louisville and Wake Forest against us. And I know that they had like dudes that are fast, but like, come on, bro. Like, come on. We should not be looking at dudes, for the most part, from Louisville and Wake Forest that are just running past us. And I know that Louisville has a couple real speedsters. I'm not saying that they don't, but just like it. I went to, when I was a kid in high school, I went to Syracuse at Michigan in 96, Donovan McNabb senior year. And Syracuse looked like they were in fast forward and Michigan was stuck in the mud in slow motion. When it looks like that for a Wake Forest returner against the University of Miami, problems. So, yeah, we need to shore up those things. And we have the players to be able to do it. Like these dudes, like we're not necessarily like peak 2000s Virginia Tech where like we have the whole starting like 22 fighting for spots on specials, but like a guy like a Dylan Day who's looking to maybe now step up into a major role. He made a name for himself on coverage. OG Bobby Pruitt, like, that we have athletic dudes. Like, this is where I believe, he's been in the chat before, but Kellen Wiley Sr., his son, Kellen Wiley Jr., this high 4-star recruit, that's a spot. He should be busting his ass to get on coverage and go down and make a play so that we talk about him on a weekly basis. Like I talked about Dylan Day. You should have your freshman defensive backs fighting to get on field and make plays. But like, it just, sometimes it seems like they approach things in a lackadaisical manner while we get everybody's A game. And like, Chris Bell, and I don't even know the dude's name from Wake Forest, they say, hey, this is my time to get on somebody's radar for professional football by doing this against the University of Miami. And we need to do what we need to do to stop that from happening. So I say all that to say, at kicker and at coverage, there are major questions, especially relative to last year. So that low ranking, unfortunately, makes sense.
If these Phil Steele defensive rankings are accurate or anything close to them, he has Notre Dame as the 4th best defensive front, The
Okay.
linebackers number 3 and the secondary number 1.
One.
He must think that this is the best defense in the country. That's what it sounds like.
I mean, they had Al Golden up as a finalist for the Royals Award last year. He did incredible work, with them before going back to the NFL. So, that is a very talented defense that, and their coach obviously played defense and has coached defense and so has a defensive focus. And that seems to be going very, very well for them. So, yeah, I think that Notre Dame is a very formidable foe on the defensive side of the ball, as well as having, one of the better running backs in America, and Jeremiah Love. That kid is a monster. Their backup is also pretty good. So that's a very, very good team. They were national runner-up for a reason. So, definitely we'll have our work cut out for us in just over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Someone's knocking at my door. Pause, please.
Will do. We do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Cam will be right back. And in the meantime, enjoy. College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now. I remember I had that in my back pocket. So there you go, folks.
Nice. Glue Sniffer 1969 asks, what are the chances we get Calvin Russell back from Syracuse? He may not be Jeremiah Smith, but we need to start landing some of this high-end receiver talent. I have written 2 or 3 versions of this piece of content on stateofview.com over the 13, 14 years that I've been doing this. 15? I don't know. Long time. But yeah, we shall see. We are definitely at the point of the year where the propaganda machine is pushing Miami as a potential flip master for a lot of blue chip players throughout the season. I know I don't know what to call them, on 3 rivals, that group of people. But I know they put up an article talking about, Miami positioning themselves, and they had it up on YouTube. I chose to skip that video when I was watching other things on my YouTube. But this is a story that I've heard, and a movie that I've seen multiple times of missing out on insert elite player here, especially wide receiver, but not exclusively at all. And then now we got to go. And I know people, and I saw Kane's tapes. He put it out, he put the tweet out there, and then somebody responded to it that I saw later. It was like, he's basically saying the same thing of like, New Year, same story. And then somebody's like, well, we flipped, Justin Scott and Mark Fletcher Jr. and Jordan Lyles and Marquise Lightfoot and well, not Marquise Lightfoot. He just made a commitment, but just like highlighting the guys that were flipped. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm not saying that flips don't happen, but it's every year with this, we don't get them. Insert player here. And now we got to try to go do work on the back end while still not playing defense on certain recruits. I was just talking about You remember Landon Ibieta, the kid from Louisiana who picked Miami and was going to be the next Braxton Berrios? He said, "No, I'm coming to Miami and not LSU. And even if they circle back and spin the block and say, hey, where's he play? Or where did he end up going? LSU." You know what I mean? Hilton Drake Stubbs from Jacksonville Mandarin. "I want to be at Miami." Your whole family are Gator people. Nah, it don't matter. I can take a late visit to UF and I'm going to be a Miami Hurricane. Where's he enrolled right now? You know what I mean? Like, so it just, is there a chance? Sure. The next game preview I'm writing is Syracuse, and the subheader for that one is just revenge because I need it. So, I mean, there's a chance to potentially flip him and potentially flip other guys because, hey, as I've said, whether it's a coach or whether it's a player, we will go get you from your good job or from that school that had you committed and whatever. We had to talk about this every single year, like I would like it, maybe not to the full extent of video game status, but I would love it if Mario Cristobal et al. Leveraged their elite recruiter traits and we got more of these guys up front and locked them down. So, it's a thing. We got to start keeping some of this high-end receiver talent. We got to keep, more of it. We did get JoJo Trader, who was a 4-star, borderline 5-star. A lot of people had him as a 5-star, right? So we did get JoJo Trader. We got Malachi Tony, best player in South Florida, as noted by multiple entities. They gave him multiple awards as a junior over current year seniors, such as Ben Hanks Jr., from Miami Booker T. Washington. Did not win that award for an underclassman who reclassified up for the purposes of early enrolling at the University of Miami. Right? So that's an elite. Josh Moore from West Broward. That's elite. And Florida tried to go get him all the way up until he submitted his paperwork. There are other and even more elite players that we can and need to get, but not exclusively at receiver. So I don't know if that answered, but that's what I got.
All right. I am pretty much tapped out unless we've got anything else in the chat that sparks your interest.
Paulo saying Notre Dame got the Al Golden we thought that we were getting. Al Golden didn't run Al Golden's defense when he was here. He let Mark D'Onofrio run some other stuff. Which, yeah, definitely. This is so. Physical Seminole has been in the chat. He's been talking some stuff, and I've ignored a lot of his stuff. Jeremiah was sold on Brian Hartline. Miami and FSU had no chance to flip him. FSU was not part of the conversation. So let me set the scene here for you. Florida State was not part of the conversation ever for Jeremiah Smith. I have it on very good authority. And other people have said this, other people have reported this, right? In addition to what I know to be true from things that I have seen and heard and talked to people who know. If Cam Ward had come to Miami straight away, instead of entering the NFL draft and coming to Miami later, had he committed to Miami before signing day, Jeremiah Smith would have signed at Miami. Believe it or don't, I've talked to people who know. So was he sold on Brian? Like, the guy has recruited and developed umpteen first-round draft picks. I'm not trying to impugn that. But including FSU in the conversation is your fandom adding fiction to reality. That's untrue and never was the case. And the additional Cam Ward part, and before you say, man, you don't know nothing, you ain't been nowhere. I worked at Miramar High School. From Geno Smith, Jeremiah Smith's cousins, sophomore year. I've been around the world of South Florida recruiting for almost 20 years now. And I know people who know things, and I talk to those people. So I give all of that for the foundation of where I'm coming from and saying what I'm saying without getting out here and then showing you my phone and divulging whatever connections and sources that I have. But I just wanted to address this because erroneous about Florida State being involved at all, and also the fact of Miami not being included in that to the end, which is why, and I know that he tried to play like it was a joke. That's why Ryan Day let out that sigh of relief when the reporter on signing day said, hey, J4 actually signed. He's like, oh man, I was so worried. He was. His blood pressure was high, and that heart was palpitating because it was uncertain that Jeremiah Smith was signing. So there you go.
I was smirking through most of that, trying to envision Jeremiah Smith on last year's Florida State offense. He would have gone crazy. He obviously would have helped out the situation, but they were just so incredibly bad that that would have driven him insane. That train.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't even want to say that he would have left on the first thing smoking, because he would have left before the first thing smoking. Like, get out of here. Physical Seminole, hey, I see you in the chat saying what you're saying. You can be wrong. That's perfectly fine with me. You can be wrong. Anyways, there was something else that I was going to say that was not relative to Physical Seminole. Whatever, that guy being wrong and loud in the comments. I do not recall. Shucks. Oh, well, in that case, I will just wrap it up and say, please go on over and fan with us at stateoftheu.com. We have a brand new redesign and an interesting, new feed feature for you to continue the conversation with us, which we're going to really start to engage here shortly. I did just write and some new game preview that's up to date. We have the rest of our game previews and position previews coming for you as well. And even some new things that I'm trying to debut this year, because, I always try to innovate new sources and streams of content for you at stateoftheu.com. So please come on over and fan with us. It's a wonderful website. It's always free, always Miami Hurricanes, all of the time. So stateoftheu.com, like you see right there on all the socials at the State of the U. My personal Twitter is also down over yonder at Underwood Sports. Where I've been taking a little bit of a summer hiatus, but, we'll eventually pop back on there. But that will not be necessarily happening this weekend, because this weekend is the 44th annual celebration commemorating the most awesome day in the history of the world. That is right, my friends and fellow Hurricanes. It is my birthday on Sunday, August the 17th. So that is my early happy birthday to me. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Please be sure that you like and subscribe. If you want to send me a happy birthday tweet or something on Sunday, I'm sure that I will, definitely interact with you guys. I do always have fun with this, and we're going to get cranked up for the rest of the season. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys soon.